Hi, this is Community Builders, the podcast where we look for the people doing the work that make this community thrive. I am honored to be here today with my guest, Chief Standridge, Chief of Chico Fire.
Well, hello. Thank you.
Thank you for being with us today.
Yes.
Let me start really 30,000 feet. What is your job and what do you do?
I affectionately say I'm the least important person in the fire department. I had an old, when I became a lieutenant, first time in being an officer, and I had an old grumpy fire engineer, driver of the apparatus, and I don't know, I must have said something that irked him, and he said, you have to understand, you're not as important as you think you are. He goes, if I put a broom on your side of the seat, we still get to the call. You try to do that in my seat, you ain't going nowhere. So I realized a long time ago, you have to be humble in this position.
Wow.
So that's just a background of the fact that the heart and soul of our fire department are the firefighters and our prevention personnel, and as well as our support staff. And as a fire chief, my job is really to help guide, provide the vision, and help achieving the goals that we've set as a fire department, and that entails getting resources to make it happen and removing hurdles and obstacles that may get in the way of achieving those goals.
Well, that sounds pretty important to me. It seems like if you want to have an apparatus at all, you're going to need to raise some resources, right?
Correct.
So what does your day-to-day look like? Is it networking, meeting with people? Is it office work? Is it going out on calls? What's a typical day look like?
Yes. I don't go as many calls as I used to. I stopped doing that a long time ago. And in fact, they probably don't want me there just so I don't muck it all up. Primarily, it's the administrative side of the house. A lot of networking, getting out, doing things like this, talking to the community members, talking to media, building relationships, and making sure that we have the support we need to achieve our goals and objectives that we've identified.
Awesome. Did you start as a firefighter?
Yes. In the career, yes, absolutely. I started from the ground up, put myself through the fire academy back in 1994.
Wow.
And then it took about a year before I got my job. And so...
What is the fire academy like? Is it?
It was grueling.
The boot camp, I imagine, or is it?
Yeah, a little bit of that. I had just come out of the Army, so I was pretty comfortable in a regimented environment, and so I discharged from the Army. I was back stationed in Alabama, and I moved from there to Denver. And I had been coming back to the West. The western part of the United States. And so I had tested a couple times for fire departments, Washington, in Denver a couple times, and then just decided I was going to make my way out there because I found out about a fire academy out there, put myself through it, and then it started volunteering with one of the local fire departments, and then eventually got hired with the department I was with for 23 years before I came out to Chico.
Wow. So the academy section is 3 years?
No, that was I think at that time was 8 or 10 months.
8 or 10 months?
I'm sorry, 8 or 10 weeks.
8 or 10 weeks.
Yes,
wow.
but they were intense 8 and 10 months or
that
weeks.
That makes sense in a way because so much of your learning is from the hands-on volunteering, right? Like it's the application.
Yeah, it augmented it for sure. It helped. Gave you a foundation for what you needed to do. I had already had my emergency medical technician training, which I got back in Alabama. So when I got to Colorado, just started the fire academy, and it was exclusively fire related. Very little EMS. activities. So everything was hands-on, pulling hoses, throwing ladders, cutting roofs, that kind of stuff. So it was very comprehensive.
Is that at all similar to what it's like in like the Chico Academy? If you were a like college student who was interested, what might you expect from like the day you apply? Are you close to having a job? Are you years out? Are you volunteering for a long time?
You know, it's interesting that it's sort of been a long-standing sort of condition or process that most of us have gone through, where you either put yourself through academy or you were lucky enough to get hired in a department that has a full-fledged academy where you come in with no experience or can come in with no experience, and they teach you everything you need to know prior to going to the floor or becoming an active full career firefighter. For City of Chico, we rely on I call them kids now because I'm at the end of my career. So
that's what happens when you
it happens rapidly, unfortunately. But you come into the fire service and you go through an academy, and a lot of young kids go through a sanctioned academy, which is about a 5-6 month process at Butte College or Shasta College or colleges up and down the state of California. And so a lot of kids will do that because they haven't had any luck getting hired with other agencies. So they're doing everything they can to create that notion that they're ready and are really committed to the profession. Then if we hire them, we put them through our own 8-week academy. And it's really structured to understand, to have them understand how we do our processes. Every fire department has different ways of accomplishing the same goals, which is if you're going to put out a fire, what kind of hose load are you putting on your engine? What types of nozzles are you using? Everything that is very important for them to be ready the day they come in as a full-fledged firefighter and riding on engines.
Have you seen a lot of changes over your tenure?
Oh, gosh, yes. Yes, there have been so many advances in technology.
Oh, cool.
I think one of the biggest impacts for the fire service has been NITS, National Institute of Traffic Safety, and UL Underwriters Laboratory. They have been doing a tremendous amount of research on fire behavior, and it's really opened our eyes to the things that would impact how we go about on a tactical level or even strategic. How do we approach a fire, and what is the most effective way to put it out in the safest way possible?
That's fascinating. I haven't thought much about the amount of research about fire behavior that's probably necessary for this job. Are there surprising things you've learned?
Yeah, there's been quite a bit, especially out of this 10-year or so effort to really understand fire behavior. And some of the things that we thought we knew have sort of changed our direction on how we ventilate a structure. And a lot of it has to do with the nature of air entering into a structure and feeding the fire.
Interesting.
So we have to be very cognizant of how we open up the structure for ventilation and how we go about it. More coordination between the hose crew going in and the truck company cutting holes in the roof or breaking windows or accessing doors and things of that nature, because the implications are significant when you open a door and then all of a sudden you have a pathway for that air to go through the building, and they can push or pull the fire towards people who are in there that might be at risk. Technology, thermal imagers. When I first got on, those weren't even a thing.
Wow.
And so all of our searches were done by being in there and reaching out with the tool or your hands and walking, basically crawling on the floor with your hands against the wall.
Is it hot?
No, just the orientation. So if we were to do a search of this room, we'd either do a left-handed search, which our hand is against the wall, or a right-handed search, and you have a partner with you all the time. And so you search that room, maximize it as much as possible. So you sweep the entire area. So you're looking for people who might still be in there and you need to rescue to get out of there. With a thermal imager, you can literally look into a room, scan the room, and see a body, and it's pretty amazing. It's been transformational. It also allows us to see the thermal layers the thermal flow of a fire. So when you're trying to find where a fire is, you're looking for the heat convection, and it helps show you the direction of the fire, or it could be behind a wall. So you're looking to see if there's fire behind the wall, and you want to be able to open it up and contain that fire. So yeah, a lot of different technologies have come through that have been amazingly helpful for firefighters. But we still use a lot of the old tools that I used when I first got on, and they're still relevant and necessary and very effective. And so we like to consider ourselves a rolling toolbox with our fire engines and ladder truck. There's just all kinds of equipment that we utilize on any given type of emergency. We're sort of like the handyman of the emergency services. We're very adept we adapt very well to our conditions because we train to a multitude of type of emergencies. So in a given day, you'll have typically most of our calls are medical calls. So we have to be prepared to help support the paramedics for critical medical needs. So they have to be proficient at that. Then you might go on a day like this where we have a lot of water going through the park. Somebody might slip in or be swept away, and we do a water rescue. We do a lot of rescues in the park for people who have been injured. So we have to go up on the side of the canyons and get them in there and out of there and so forth. Structure fires, and structure fires entail a lot of different types of building types, what kind of activities are in there, and so we adjust our tactics based on the type of structure we do. And then a structure fire is very different than a vegetation or wildland interface fire.
I'm really interested in that. So maybe first of all, how common are structure fires? Obviously, wildfires get a very high profile out here, but is that something that is daily, monthly, yearly?
No, we get about a good true structure fire once a month, twice a month. Yeah, we're busy when it comes to fire, structure fires. We actually have quite a few for a city of our size, and a lot of it's a little bit older of a city, and so a lot of the homes are older. They don't have suppression sprinklers in their homes like some of the new ones that you'd find being built like on Eaton Road in those neighborhoods. And so, yeah, we just have a plethora of incidents that we can run on, and in a given day you may run 4 or 5 different types of incidents within that day. So you have to understand what your role and responsibility is based on where you're sitting in that engine.
Yeah. Can I ask about the Bidwell fire, the Bidwell Mansion fire?
No, sure.
What happened there?
They caught fire. It was.
So I'm guessing didn't have sprinklers, or did it? It was it's a very old building.
It's an old building.
Yeah,
correct. It had a fire alarm system. The state's still investigating the nature of why the alarm didn't go off. It was about 20 minutes, if I recall, before the fire was ignited until somebody saw the flames and called it in.
20 minutes seems like a long time in fire.
Very long time. Yeah. And that's one of the things that we're very aware of, and that has come out of the research from UL and NITS, is the rapid increase in fire progression. Wow. So what we now see is, we call it modern fires, because a lot of what we have in our structures now are synthetic woods, synthetic flooring, the furnishings, all the wall adornments and everything like that are now made of synthetics that are oil-based.
Right.
So what we've seen is a dramatic increase in the growth of fire versus older homes pre-1980s, and they grew at a much slower rate. So now you're just seeing what we call flashover, where the fire becomes so intense, it's actually particles and unburnt gases are accumulating on the roof, and it gets so hot it just ignites everything at one time. We call it a flashover. So what it creates is it creates a very deadly situation for not only the occupants who were affected by it, but our firefighters too. Sure. Yeah. So if you get a flashover event, it's a very big deal. So we're very aggressive at getting in and putting water on a fire, because that's the way you control it.
Wow.
So to that extent, the mansion fire just grew exponentially. Now that's an older building, doesn't have necessarily the same type of contents that you'd see in a modern home, but still 20 minutes is a long time.
What is the ideal thing to build your home out of?
Concrete. It's probably not the most comfortable place you'll live in.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the best thing that has really helped reduce throughout the country is the use of or mandating sprinklers in homes. Because prior to that, we didn't have that, and you'd rely on the smoke detector to get you out, but you didn't have anything to actually extinguish it unless
you just know that there's a fire, and that's it only takes you so far.
So I mean, and it's a little different too. You're seeing, as well as the wildfire interface or the wildland urban interface areas, are now the state's become more aggressive about requiring what they call WUI standards, which is Wildland Urban Interface, WUI, building standards. So it helps harden the homes from embers getting into the structure.
Imagine your children and your grandchildren hearing your story in your own voice.
I always believe in be nice, be kind, be healthy.
This is more than a video. It's a connection to bring your family closer together.
Woodrow is my grandson. When he came home from the hospital, right, he's so quiet, nobody knows they had baby.
What I wouldn't give to have my grandparents on camera, in a video.
Ever since she was little, I can tell she's very special.
And that's why we started Life All Told, to preserve your memories with a well-crafted professional video. It's the gift of a lifetime.
Is there a common mistake or something that people could easily be doing to prevent fires in their homes that you see often? Is it daisy chaining power strips?
Yeah,
is it oven settings?
There's probably a handful
One thing
things
we could tell the audience to take away, like, don't do this.
Yeah, I wouldn't daisy chain.
Yeah.
Make sure the power strips have the reset little
the fuse.
The
thing.
fuse, yeah. And candles. Candles are a huge one for us. We get those all the time. People smoking in bed. People on their oxygen smoking. We've had those.
Wow.
Cooking fires tend to be less problematic, but they do create, you leave burning food or something like that and forget about it, and you have a little kitchen fire. But yeah, candles are a big thing. Bad wiring is usually a culprit as well, and cigarettes. Falling asleep and something to that effect.
So good wiring and stop smoking.
I would also say having your smoke detectors operable, so changing out those batteries as we change time. We tell everybody, put new batteries in. Every 10 years, typically has been the case, 10 years for smoke detectors to be needed replacing. Now, some of the newer ones don't have that limitation like they used to. And then also making sure you have a working CO detector as well.
The mansion fire, it's looking like was arson, correct?
Correct.
Is that, I know I wanted to talk about the park fire as well, which was also arson.
Well, that one is,
or maybe not. We're not sure
that's
yet.
that's still in the DA's office. I don't recall if they actually press charges, but it was man-made, or it was
Human caused.
human caused, yeah. Or a car on fire, and it was pushed over the edge for whatever reason. I can't speak to the gentleman's motive, but it was a vehicle that was on fire. Whether it was intentionally set, accidentally caught on fire, I couldn't tell you that. That's where the DA's office has been working on. So,
Is there been an uptick or a change in patterns of arson since you've been in the field?
in this city, yes. It gets a little convoluted when we talk about arson. Our job is not to determine arson.
That's important. That's an important
Our investigation is about identifying the cause and origin of where the fire started and how did it start. And then we determine, is this a fire that was caused by human activity? Is it mechanical, an act of nature? So those give you the basic parameters. And once you've determined it's human caused, then you start to look at, okay, what caused the issue? Were there accelerants in the building? Well, that might be a clear indicator or a clearer indicator of possible arson. So we collect all that information, and then we turn it over to law enforcement, in particular Chico PD. Then they take that information, then they lean into our fire investigators to help identify, okay, tell us more about this one. We have a really solid group of fire investigators in our department, and they have done amazing work over the last several years.
Wow.
Because what they do is they get all that information, they handle it accordingly. We coordinate with PD to make sure the evidence is secured in a proper way, give them an opportunity to understand what the cause of the fire was. What's our inclination as to, does it seem like it was purposeful or it was done purposely? And then the PD can then build the case around that and then send it up to the DA's office. So we want to take when we do our investigation, we want to be as tight as possible. Then when we turn over PD, they're meticulous. They want to take that case up if it's indeed arson.
Do we know how the campfire started?
The campfire?
Yeah.
It was a PG&E
that's right.
line.
And it was it a downed line? And so is that considered nature or human?
That would be mechanical.
Mechanical?
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. And where does that fall on how likely are those compared to arson or natural vegetation fires?
Ooh, that's a great question. I'd have to look at the numbers. I haven't looked at those to see what is our top origin or cause. I'd have to look that up. I don't have it offhand. Interesting.
So do you remember for the park fire, getting the call, or like the moment you realized that this wasn't a small thing?
We know that there are certain places in the city and weather conditions that when we get a fire in those areas and during high wind events, red flag days, we always go into it with the notion that it can be a big fire. So we try to send as many resources as we have available. We have a very good working relationship with CAL FIRE, and we do have a cooperative agreement for what we call the Chico urban area. That is our jurisdiction as a city, and then the surrounding areas that are a county. And particularly between the southern part of the city all the way up to the north past the airport and along the eastern side of the city are what we call the mutual threat zone. So it encompasses not only the city but the county areas where if a fire starts in either one of those jurisdictions, we simultaneously send the resources from both Chico and CAL FIRE to get those resources going and trying to contain it as quickly as possible, because the implications are if that fire starts to grow exponentially, then we get behind the 8 ball, and that's what happened in the Park Fire. We had heavy winds, south winds. When it went down into the embankment, it lit up Crown Fuels, and then we started seeing ember casting across the road and then up the Bidwell walls of the north rim.
The evacuation zone for us was right across the street. There were one street within the safe zone.
Yeah, and we're always concerned about where the wind's going and so forth, and that one just pushed it quickly.
If those winds had been blowing north, what would have happened to Chico?
Oh, that's a great question. It would have moved to the south and moved into the county. There's a little island there that's off of Centennial and Chico Creek Road there that goes to Annie Glen Trail there, right, that area. Those homes are susceptible in that area, as is Canyon Oaks.
Yeah.
So, yes, it's hard to project what would have happened, but, it's not inconceivable it would have run pretty quick as well.
Are we equipped and prepared for if that kind of thing does happen and the winds are not blowing in the way we want?
We have, like I said, we have a very good relationship and a agreement with CAL FIRE. But there's sometimes the fire is more intense. It goes quicker than we hope for. We put aircraft, or when I say we, CAL FIRE will launch aircraft, presuming they're not on other fires, but we get them up in the air pretty quickly to try to get retardants down. And so we're really aggressive about that. But it takes time to get the resources all in place, and managing it, understanding where the fire is at, where is it going. So are we prepared? Probably. I was asked by the mayor Mayor Reynolds asked about putting a presentation as to where we're gapped as a community for preparedness, and I referred to resiliency. How resilient are we as a community? And we are lacking in certain areas. Mitigation work, we've done a lot for what resources we had available. Parks Department is really responsible for the mitigation within the parks and waterways and so forth. And there are a lot of limitations. Some of them are legal limitations in terms of when we can burn, when we can mitigate certain areas, how close can we get to the waterways and so forth. So there are some restrictions there. And we just have a lot of open space that really does need significant mitigation. And then on a response side, we're 5 apparatus on it at any given day. And for a city this size, with the call volume we have, the risks that are the hazards and associated risks that are in this city, and it's a really broad spectrum of hazards that we do have here in the city. We're not as staffed as we should be given those dynamics.
Can you describe your ideal candidate? Who do you really want to see walking through that door when people are applying?
Oh, wow. There's a number of good traits. Our department is very competent, extremely competent. I would put our firefighters up against anybody. In fact, it was one of the things that really impressed me about this group when I got here. They are hard workers. And the other thing that makes them very unique relative to a lot of other agencies, they primarily live in or in close proximity of the city of Chico. So their kids tend to go to school here. Their wives or spouses work here as well. They're attending church. They're coaches in Little League and they shop here, they go out to dinner, they go to entertainment. This is their community. So they're extremely vested in what happens in this community, and they're very passionate about what they do. I mean, the fire service, when you get into the fire service, it is not a job. It is a calling. It is an expectation that you are sacrificing yourself for the betterment of other people. And they truly, absolutely live that to the core. So we want people that when they come in, they are not only competent, and we test their competence through the academy. And we're not afraid to let them go. And we have, since I've been here, we've probably let 3, 4 at least firefighters who either didn't make it in the academy for whatever reasons, or during their rookie year, they didn't meet the expectations we need. We need highly intelligent, capable, just rock stars, and we get them. We get a lot. I'll tell you where we have. This shows you the passion of our fire floor. We have a large cadre of firefighters that teach out at Butte College, and they have so much influence saying, this kid is great. We've got to hire this kid out of this academy. And I would say without a doubt, every class that we've brought in seemingly just get better and better. Not to say that the other firefighters are. It's just an impressive. I mean, we just have such amazing kids. I mean, they are go-getters. They're extremely motivated. They're extremely intelligent, very competent. They're go-getters, and they're all of them are just into making sure that they do the best possible thing that they can. I say this. It's no BS. I came from Colorado, and I came from a very good fire department. Don't get me wrong, but man, I'm telling you, this group of men and women, I'd put against everybody because they're so passionate, they're so committed to their profession that they just absolutely are amazing. I can't speak any better than that.
I absolutely love that endorsement. I can feel your pride in these folks, and that's exactly who we should want, right? Doing
Correct.
These incredible jobs to keep this community safe. And you also make it sound really fun. It makes it sound like there's a lot of action and a lot of sci-fi stuff. So
we get a lot of young kids going. I mean, I can remember coming out of the fire academy and getting hired on, and I was so excited. My first rookie year, like within the first couple of weeks, I had 2 big fires on one day. I'm like, oh my God, this is the way my rest of my career is going to go. Didn't happen that way, but here, man, our kids run our crews run so many calls, so many very different types of calls, big calls. And if you think about in the 7 years I've been here, we've had the 4th largest fire in California history.
Yeah.
In the Park Fire, and we were directly affected, as well as family members being affected of theirs and living up in Paradise and so forth. And then our crews, we sent in virtually an entire complement of an entire shift up to the campfire for the entirety of it. The deadliest fire, destructive fire in California history. So you look at it, and these kids get, I mean, the men and women that are running calls day in and day out, every day is a potential for a massive fire or a event of any type. I mean, look, we have a railroad that goes right through, a very significant part of our city. We have some high rises. We have hazmat type of facilities and businesses that could create a real issue for us as well. We have, like I said, when my department in Colorado, they had a very squared away rescue team. But rarely did they ever get to use their skills. Here, our folks, we probably run 5 or 6 at least rescues in the park every year. So they're utilizing their skill sets. So it is for people coming into this department, you're going to see some action. So going back to your original question was, what do we expect? We expect them the moment they get out of that academy, they sit in that back seat of a fire engine. Their crew, their captain, their engineer, if they have a 4th firefighter on there, they all have to understand you have a job to do and you have specific things that you need to accomplish, and we don't have time to baby you through it. If you work in a larger city fire department, like I said, you can come into the fire service with no experience whatsoever, get all your training, and you're usually, those larger fire departments will have 4 on an engine, and so you get to be a firefighter that gets to sort of ease into that position. When they come onto our fire department, the expectation is you've got shit to do and you got work to do. You better get going. Sorry.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I was actually hoping we could swear.
Yeah, no, you're good. Unfortunately, I have a very bad habit of it.
Yeah, well, no, it's not a bad habit. I'm of the philosophy that there's no such thing as a bad word, but any word you use to hurt somebody is bad.
I hear you.
And speaking of swearing, can you tell me what was the oh shit moment of? We got a bit of a fire in Paradise and the winds are picking up. Can you talk to me a little bit about that?
Yeah, I can. That was a surreal day for sure. So I was just driving in, and one of our former division chiefs, Jesse Alexander, who is now the chief of Yuba Fire, super smart guy, super awesome. And he loved our well, at that time we didn't have battalion chiefs, but he was our division chief, and he was on duty that day. He was, he texted me, hey, there's a big fire. There's a fire up in up above or up in Butte Creek. He goes, it looks like it's a big one. So I'm driving in. I can see the column of smoke. I'm like, okay, it's a fire. We started getting requests for resources, so we sent a couple resources up there. And we got requests for more. By 2 o'clock, we had sent everything that we had but for the ladder truck, and then we called people back in to staff up reserve units. And as the day wore on, the smoke got worse and worse and worse, and it literally darkened the sky. You could barely see. You could just see a little blob of red from the sun coming through. And we're trying to gauge, where's this fire going? And so John Messina, who was at the time a division chief for CAL FIRE, later became the Butte unit chief and has since retired. Super, super good guy. Very competent. He was the incident commander for that incident. So my deputy chief was calling and saying, "Hey, John, do you know where this fire is going?" He goes, "Chris, we don't know where it's going. We're trying to figure it out because the smoke had just sort of settled in. It created this buffer, and they couldn't get a gauge on where the fire was actually pushing from. And it was a little eerie, and so we were sending individual crew members to do some recon up Honey Run and up 32, and it wasn't until about 5 o'clock, and I get a call from their Butte unit chief, Darren Reed, and he said, "Hey, the fire, we just got word the fire is coming into the city, and we're going to try to get you a task force or a strike team out there." And we're like, holy crap. So we punched out our units over there, and sure enough, the fire had already burned down one of the homes in Stilson Canyon on the county side. And we were able to get dozers in there and started protecting the properties up there. And fortunately for us, it never went any further than that. It had burned down on the backside of Stilson on the south side up to the 20th Street, where it just ends there at the end of the on the west side or east side of Bruce Road. And it was just such a surreal event. And I can remember driving up 32, I'd had a phone call that the ops chief of the incident needed to meet with me and the branch director, who happened to be Shane Lauderdale, former fire chief for Chico. And so I drove up and met them. And on my way up there, I ran into John, and he was just like, his eyes were just like he had been in a war. And so you could just see the impact of everybody up there. It was wow. Pretty surreal for sure. And then as things started, as information was coming out and we were getting feedback of what our crews went through after they came down the hill, and we had a chance to touch base with them and get a quick debrief. The amazing work that all firefighters, law enforcement, I mean, we had Chico PD up there trying to evacuate, CAL FIRE, obviously, and then the crews that were coming in from throughout the state. I mean, I can't even express how dynamic that event was. It was something I'll never forget. And I wasn't even up there. I was just down here, trying to help make sure we had our resources available in case the fire did come into the city and so forth. So, yeah, it was very surreal.
Y'all did incredible work.
Not me. I'm telling you, the men and women who were up there, they deserve every bit of the kudos. And then the crews who came back, because our crews were up there for 17 days. And so we had basically just 2 platoons working 3 different platoons. So, I'm not kidding you when I tell you the dedication that these men and women, the men and women of Chico Fire, is unparalleled. I mean, they're constantly coming in, covering the city when we have a structure fire, and this was a prolonged period of time. So, yeah.
How else can the community support, other than getting you the right applicants, other than making sure that we thank you and appreciate you? What does your department need, and how can people get involved and help?
Well, I sound like a broken record, but it's nonetheless the 2 strategic priorities, the immediate and sort of the longer term priorities. And we have a lot of needs in the fire department, But I'm focused on these two needs because one, adding another engine company with the apparatus and the personnel to give us, instead of 4 engines, we now have 5 engines. And that will give us more capacity. And quite frankly, we could use another one above that, beyond that. But I'll take one at a time if I could get it. And it's important to understand for the people who are listening. In 2008, we had 22 firefighters on per day, and we were staffing 6 stations. So we had 5 apparatus and 1 ladder, or 5 engines and 1 ladder truck. We were at about 84,000, something along those lines. We've now grown to about 110,000 in this city since that time. And we only have 17 firefighters on per day.
That's absurd.
And it's absurd. And we have, not only have we grown exponentially, our call volume has doubled from 2008 to what we are today. So our folks are just getting the living crap beat out of them day in and day out because they're running a lot of calls and not insignificant calls. I mean, there's a lot of legitimate severe medicals, traffic accidents, structure fires, vegetation fires. I mean, you name it, we do it day in and day out. And so that engine would be an immediate improvement in our response capability as well as capacity. So
who decides that you get that? And who do we call? Who do we ask?
I think the best thing I can say is our city council, our current city council is so supportive of the fire department.
I love that.
And we've been really purposeful to work with, share our business model. We're very different than police. We're very different than the paramedics at Enloe. We're just a different business model, and a lot of people don't understand how we operate or why we operate the way we do. But these are important. The way we go about our business has been born out of decades and decades of trial and error and working through this. It's no coincidence that almost every fire department through the country does the same thing.
Right.
Because it works, and it's a necessary way to go about business. Now we tinker on things on the periphery of that. So going back to your question, how can our community help us? Get a hold of your council member in your district and convey how important it is for us to make sure the fire department is healthy, capable, and as capable as we can be given, like I said, all the hazards and associated risks, the call volume we have, the population we have. And the Chico Fire Department is largely an island. If you go to Roseville, and if you're the City of Roseville Fire Department, you have Sac Metro Fire surrounding you. You have Rockland Fire. You've got a city of Sacramento that can send resources to a big fire. I mean, they've got a ton of fire departments around them or adjacent to them, so they can call in resources pretty easy. And we have an agreement with a mutual aid agreement as well as an automatic aid agreement. They're slightly different, but with the mutual aid, we can call for resources, but the county has their own calls that they're trying to run. So it's a balance of how many resources can they send us. So we are an island. So we rely on our firefighters to come back in and staff our reserve rigs when we get a structure fire. So that isn't good for our community when we're down. We've had instances in this last several years for sure where we've gotten a structure fire or a vegetation fire, and we've used up all but one resources in the city. And that one resource still has to run the other calls that are coming in, the other emergencies. So as we've grown as a community, there is a very close correlation. More population yields more calls for service. So if our community wants to put the effort into that, or want to express that, I guess, contacting your city council member, because they do listen to the community and they're very receptive to that. And like I said, we've spent a lot of time working with our community to give them a better understanding why we need that extra engine. The second priority, it's a longer term one. For one, it's very costly, and two, it takes time to get it built, even if we have the money today, and that's Station 6, which we would like to build right off of Eaton and Hicks. It was really impacted by the fact we don't have a close fire station to them. And so our response times are much longer than they are in other parts of the city where most of our fire stations are housed. So getting one here would be very beneficial for response times, additional resource, and so forth.
To me, these seem like just unbelievably popular initiatives. I would be hard-pressed to find anyone in this community who wouldn't say, yes, we want to equip the firefighters with everything they need to keep us safe. And I hope that City Council can do what it takes to get you guys all of these resources, because you certainly deserve it. I think this community deserves it. Clearly, we would all benefit from having these kinds of things. It's trying not to use the word no-brainer, but that is how it feels to me.
Well, it's I don't want to downplay that notion. I agree with you. I would love to see that kind of that resource being staffed. I don't envy the job of the city manager and the job of our council members who have to prioritize, and when the revenues are apparently going to be flat, you have to find that money somewhere else. Now, that's not my job, but I will say it is an important thing for us to convey how important it is for having that extra engine. And from our vantage point, when we went from 22 to 17, actually we went from 22 at one point, we're at 14 a day. So since I've been here, that was where we were at. We were 14 and 15, depending on the day. Yeah. And slowly, we've incrementally improved our response capability and capacity, but we're far off from where we should be.
Ridiculous. I want you guys to have all of that stuff.
I appreciate that.
And it's a very, generous of you to have so much consideration for City Council. They do have tough jobs. They do have to balance a lot of different public safety things, but you're also totally right that we got to advocate for this stuff too. And
my job is just that. My job is not to make the final decision. My job is to really convey the importance of my resource needs.
Well said.
And so I have a great relationship with the council members and my city manager, and I appreciate the support we get from them. I don't envy the decisions they have to make, because they have a lot of requests from community members on a variety of things. I can only just speak to the fact that I know what we need from a fire department. That's my expertise. And so when I come in and I say, this is what we need, and they ask why, and then I provide the why, now it's their opportunity to decide how we need to prioritize that. So,
yeah, and it's hopefully by conveying the stakes and the importance of these things, it makes those hard decisions a little easier for them. So in a way, we're helping them out by letting them know how easy this decision could be.
Yeah, and the other piece to this is another aspect is the fire department's role in mitigation and wildfire prevention and so forth. And that's another area that we're really gapped in that I have a passion for. And I think the fire department has a opportunity to be much more involved in that realm. And we're having some internal discussions about how do we do that? What can we do? How should it look in terms of mitigation and what's our involvement? What's our responsibility for some of those activities? Because in a lot of communities, the fire department is the one that manages the mitigation portion of that, as well as all the preparedness, outreach, and so forth. So I envision that at some point there will likely be much more involvement in that for the fire department than it is today. But again, it comes with resources, because it's a very labor intensive program you have to oversee when you're talking about wildfire mitigation and education and outreach and working with individual property owners and businesses and so forth. But there's a lot of opportunity there, and I think we're well suited to take that challenge on.
I want to switch gears a little bit and ask a little bit about you personally.
Sure.
I heard Colorado. I heard Alabama.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me about your upbringing, where you were raised, what kind of path you took. You can give me a truncated version, but
You don't want to hear a 2.5-hour dissertation on Steve's life.
I wouldn't mind. I think I could listen all day.
Oh, good. I wish I had that opportunity. I grew up predominantly in Medford, Oregon, Southern Oregon. We moved there. I was born in California, and then we moved up there when I was going into third grade. I graduated there, and I turned tail and ran to California. My parents are divorced, and my dad had moved to Santa Cruz, so I went there, went to junior college there, played a little football, and my football career was not panning out, so I went 4-year at Cal Poly.
Oh, cool.
And I got a bachelor's degree in business administration, and it wasn't speaking to me. And so I went into the Army to fly helicopters. So I ended up in the Army for a couple of years, and it was at a time that President Clinton was reducing the military funding, calling it the peace dividend. And so I was a victim of that. Not that I was necessarily dejected by it, because flying didn't necessarily inspire me either. And as I was waiting for the transition out of the Army, I met a senior warrant officer. He had been a pilot in the Vietnam War, medevac pilot. For some reason, he saw something. I don't know what it was, but he said, you ought to go get your EMT. I think you'd really like it. He goes, look, you're here for a couple months. Take the class, get it. The Army's going to pay for it. I'm like, okay. So I did it, and I'm like, oh, I love this. And there was a volunteer rescue squad there. And so I started volunteering for there, and I'm like, oh, yeah, I found my jive. And then I started like, okay, what can I do with this? And I went on for my basic EMT basic training to my next level was intermediate, and then I was about ready to start paramedicine. And I had started testing for different fire departments and wasn't having any luck. Knew I didn't want to live in Alabama. And so I found the academy and picked up. I arrived there on February 1st in Colorado, found a little studio, moved in, and on the 7th, the academy started. So I got through the academy, spent the rest of that year in 94 just working, testing, trying to get onto a fire department. And then eventually I got really lucky and got hired with a fire department that I ended up with for 23 years.
Oh, wow.
And there were a number of factors that played into starting to test for a fire chief. And one of them, not the least of which, was my mom still lives in Medford and my dad still lives in Santa Cruz. So I was thinking, it'd be nice to be closer to them as they're getting older and needed more help. So at the time was married and my 2 kids, and we moved out here, and I started here in January of 2018 and been here ever since.
Wow. At what moment did it switch over for you from a job to a calling, as you described it?
Oh, it was a calling from the very moment that I was starting to volunteer. Yeah, I mean, it clearly spoke to me. It was everything I wanted but didn't know I wanted it.
Yeah.
And once I started doing it, it was very profoundly, it changed my life profoundly. I knew what I wanted to do from that point forward.
Chief Standridge, I'm thankful that you are in this community. I'm grateful for all the work you do. I appreciate having someone of your ability and your insight in the position that you are. Thank you for protecting the community where I live, where my family lives, and thanks for being a guest today on Community Builders.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.